Today, I would like to discuss instant runoff voting and why I love Australia. Instant runoff voting is a voting system used only on a national scale in 3 countries: Fiji, Papua New Guinea, and Australia. Now, how does instant runoff voting work? Well, if it's a parliament being elected, or even single member people, it's a single winner contest. Well, if it was a parliament, there are single member districts with several candidates vying for 1 seat in each district. You vote for the candidate, not the party, like first past the post. However, instant runoff voting is much more fair. Basically, here's how it works. Voters go to the polls and they rank their candidates. They see a list of all the candidates for that seat and they must rank them from their most preferred candidate, number 1, to their least preferred. And if there are 8 candidates, the one that they don't like the most is at the very bottom, number 8. So, preferences. Which one you like the best, second best, third best, fourth best. And then, when the votes are counted, the first preferences are first counted. If no candidate receives a majority, not a plurality, a majority, 50% plus 1 or more, in first preferences, the candidate with the lowest number of first preferences is eliminated. And then the voters from the first preferences for that candidate, their second preferences come into play and are distributed amongst the other candidates. And then, if, say, the person with the lowest number of first preference votes still does not help one candidate get a majority, the candidate with the second lowest number of first preferences is eliminated, and his or her votes, second preferences, are distributed amongst the other candidates, the second preferences. And if the person with the lowest number of first preferences, if their second preferences were to the second last, that person's third preferences come into play, and so forth, so on and so forth. And then this goes on and on until someone receives an absolute majority. I hope that's not too confusing. There are actually graphs on other YouTube videos which show how it works. Explaining it like this, I would need a whiteboard to point it out. And as I'm too lazy to aim the camera at a whiteboard, I just prefer this backdrop of this bookcase behind me. I can only say it in words. Now, so there are other YouTube videos and other websites on the internet that can explain it better than I can. But I can tell you the advantages and disadvantages quite easily. The advantage is majority rules. The majority of the people in this district overall like their candidate because he got a majority. It's the principle. It's not just appeasing certain groups within a district, certain groups of voters within a district, but everybody's vote matters, and then the majority, it's the majority of people whose votes matter. And then the resulting parliament shows the overall opinion of the country. Overall, they're leaning towards this direction, leaning left or leaning right. It's not exactly how the people voted. It's not exactly how the people are feeling, but they're saying, well, overall, we're heading in this direction in opinion. And it's not, oh, these groups, these certain groups of people from these districts have representation and everyone else does not, like first past the post. No, here is the majority of the country is actually represented in the parliament. So I like it. Now, then the candidates, the politicians, will actually listen to their voters. Let me explain. Under first past the post, the politician only pays attention to people who are considering voting for him, or do not even listen to their voters at all, because they know the biggest group in that constituency will automatically vote him in and outvote everyone else, but not by a majority. Outvote all the other groups, only by plurality. And then he doesn't care about the other voters. Under instant runoff voting, every vote matters, so the politicians will try to win over everyone, not just their base. And under instant runoff voting, extremist votes, voters who voted in first preference to extreme candidates, fringe politicians, their votes are actually transferred into mainstream votes, into votes for mainstream candidates because of the preference system. And that eliminates, in some way, the threat from the far right or the far left. Now, the disadvantages of this system is trading preferences and selling preferences. Some politicians, when they think, oh, we will not have the most first preference votes and we're probably not going to win that seat anyway, we're going to tell our voters where to direct their preferences. And the voters will listen to the politician. They can still vote they can still direct their preferences any way they want, but they will often listen to the politician because they don't know all the candidates on the list. So they don't know how to rank them all. Saying, I don't know this candidate. Why am I supposed to direct my preferences to this candidate if I don't know him? So then they will often listen to their first choice, their first preference candidate. They will often listen to him and he'll tell them where to direct their preferences. Because the voters frankly don't know all the candidates. So then politicians often make deals with each other and trade preferences. And I frankly don't feel I'm making a very good statement with these preferences. I'm not saying I choose that person or I choose that party. And then I make clear what my opinion is. Here I'm saying, oh, first place, second place, third place, fourth place. Oh, I don't want to see you elected, but you're better than this guy. And then I don't make a firm statement saying, you are my preferred candidate. You guys are my preferred party. You don't make an absolute statement. Why do I have to vote for everyone? You know, it's kind of weird and doesn't doesn't feel as gratifying as a single bullet vote. So that is instant runoff voting. I hope I didn't confuse you too much. It's better with a graph and all, and I'm not too good at graphics and so on. I can only make these video recordings, and I still don't know how to edit them. Now, you'll be surprised, some of you might be surprised to hear that Australia is my favorite democracy. Which country in the world do I feel best represented? So the vote is fair, and I feel a sense of security that the far right or the far left, that extremists will not take over the government, will not be in a strong position of forming government. Australia uses instant runoff voting, as we've been discussing. So if I lived in a district of a safe center-right politician's seat, I can say that, well, I voted differently, but the majority in this area voted this way, so I can't object to the majority, you know? But if I lived in a safe place, and say, if I lived in a seat where, a district where my preferred candidate is, I'd say, oh yeah, I feel represented, and his or her opponents, oh, they also had a fair chance. I'm not outvoting people by a plurality, but by a majority. So not everyone will be represented, but I will be assured that the majority is represented. And I will feel, even though I may not like my member of parliament, I know that he's still going to try to win over my vote. That he's still going to try to win me over, saying, I need your preferences. What can I do to make your life better? So the politician will think my vote is important. So that's why I feel that's secure. Now, granted, Australia has some pretty despicable politicians, the likes of Julia Gillard, Tony Abbott, and that racist Pauline Hanson. Granted that there are some pretty horrible politicians, that's what the Australian people voted for. So I cannot object to that. But at least I know I'm properly represented. And if you're a fan of proportional representation, the Australian Senate, the upper house, is elected in a proportional way. So if you feel you're not represented in the lower houses of parliament, in the House of Representatives, you can feel represented in the Senate, those fans of proportional representation. So the extremists will not be able to form government in the lower house, but they might have their representation in the upper house. So I feel secure and properly represented. I apologize if I repeat myself sometimes. So, everyone is represented, everyone's vote counts. And one more thing, Australia has compulsory voting. So it's not just the opinions of the people that voted, it's the opinions of everyone, or 99% or 95%, because some people, for good reason, cannot vote. For good reason, like if they're sick or if they're out of the country. Yeah, there you go. But voting is compulsory, everyone's vote counts, love Australia. They're the best democracy in the world, in my opinion. And if I weren't so rooted here in Indonesia, if I did not have a life here, I'd move to Australia. Thing is, I have a house here, I have a family here, and I have basically a future here. So, no chance moving there. But if I had, well, if I didn't have a family here, and if I weren't married, I'd probably move to Australia. So congratulations, Aussies. You have the greatest democracy on earth. In my opinion. Well, I hope I didn't bore you and I explained everything clearly enough. Thank you for listening.